As you can see, there is no room for debate.
Objection! Why, it's you.
Wright, the Ace Attorney, a man who is by far one of the hardest fighters in fictional history. But he doesn't fight by throwing punches or in a martial arts ring or anything like that. Nope, he fights in a court of law as a defense attorney, there to defend his clients to the very end, even if it does cost him his dignity most of the time. Phoenix, or Nick for short, is a genius, able to solve any riddle, no matter how ridiculous or gruesome. But some of you are probably asking, wait, he's just a lawyer? How could someone like that participate in the violent setting of Super Smash Bros? Or not, since there's already plenty of characters in Smash who aren't actually fighters. It doesn't really matter. Nick actually has already shown up in fighting games in the past, with his most notable appearance being in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Now, normally I do try to avoid using games outside of the character's main source material to make these movesets, but this time around, I will be making an exception. Mainly because, well, Marvel 3 did such a great job with interpreting Nick into the fighting game setting, and trying to be completely different just for the sake of doing so would be dumb. Don't get me wrong though, I'm not copying it. I really wouldn't be able to anyways, since Marvel and Smash are mechanically two very different fighting games, and trying to move a moveset from one game to the other would lead to quite a few complications. So I will be using Marvel 3 as a source to help build this moveset, but I am still going to be prioritizing the Ace Attorney games when it comes to the inspiration behind Nick's attacks. Well, attacks is probably the wrong word to use here, at least not in the traditional sense. While Nick is on the battlefield, he'd be treating the Smash fight like he would a court trial. Think of all the damage that he deals to opponents, not as pain he's inflicting to weaken them, but more so damage to their credibility. He's a lawyer, and the player controlling him would be his client. In other words, the defendant. That of course makes all of Phoenix's opponents the witnesses. They're to try to get Nick's client charged with a guilty verdict, or in the case of Smash, a loss of the match. And it's up to Nick to damage the credibility of those witnesses by finding evidence and contradictions to help his client, the player, get a not guilty verdict, the win. Does this make Xander Mobus the judge? He is the one who announces when a match starts at Go, as well as the one who announces the winner, kinda like a judge. Anyways, I think you all get the idea. So let's go ahead and get right into this. Phoenix would be a lightweight character, as he is pretty scrawny. He would have 2 jumps and would be able to crawl. So something I'd like to go over real quick before we start this moveset is how Nick functions as a fighter in Marvel vs. Capcom. In that game, Nick has 3 modes. Investigation mode, which represents Nick while investigating a case and gathering information and evidence. Trial mode, which represents Nick while in the courtroom as he defends his client and gathers information from those on the witness stand. And finally, Turnabout mode, which represents Nick after he figures out what really happened and works to indict who he believes is the real culprit. Each mode has a slightly different moveset, with Investigation mode being the weakest and most vulnerable, and Turnabout mode being one of the most powerful movesets in the entire game. These modes will not be included in this What If Smash moveset. It will all just be one moveset. Why I bring these up is because I will be using a good chunk of attacks from Marvel 3 as an example, and some of these attacks can only be used in certain modes. That said, all of Nick's attacks aren't actually attacks, but more so motions that reflect what we see him do in the courtroom setting or that reflect his personality. On top of that, Nick will not be alone. While Nick is very much an accomplished lawyer, he's always had a friend there to help pick him back up when things look bleak. And coming with him to Smash will be his best and most faithful friend, Maya Fey. Of course Maya will be there with Phoenix, it'd feel wrong if she weren't. And there will be quite a few attacks in which Maya will come to assist with. I'll go over them and her involvement as we get to them now. So for Nick's jab, it would be a single hit jab that would lead into a rapid jab attack. He would pull out a piece of paper and look at it. Yep, that's the attack. Best get used to that now, folks. This attack does make reference to the graphic of him looking at a piece of paper in the Ace Attorney games, but it will also look like his light ground attack in Marvel 3. But for the rapid jab, he'll begin reading the information and evidence on the paper that he's holding, and the act of talking will create a bunch of popping speech bubbles, which will be what deals damage to opponents. And the finisher hit of the rapid jab will be a larger popping speech bubble to knock foes away. Nick's dash attack would be one of his attacks that less represents his professionalism in court and more so his overall clumsy personality. He would trip and fall forwards, slightly sliding forwards on his face after hitting the ground. This could also be seen as reference to Nick's quarter circle medium attack while in investigation mode, which didn't have Nick trip and fall, but instead had Maya fall over, acting as a comedic type of projectile. The side tilt would have Nick throw a bunch of papers forwards, a direct reference to one of Nick's quarter circle attacks while in trial mode. This attack will have a slightly lingering hitbox as the papers float down before disappearing, so it could be great as a defensive tool and as a pressure tool. For the idea that I have for Nick's up tilt, he would have an idea. Literally, he'd have a moment of realization and a light bulb would appear above his head. This light bulb would be what hurts opponents, as usually any idea that Nick has is bad for the real culprit. While not exactly the same, inspiration for this idea was pulled from Nick's ground heavy attack while in trial mode. His down tilt would be another Marvel 3 attack, specifically his crouching heavy while in investigation mode, which has Nick examine the ground in front of himself. This attack would be a strong launcher, but would deal minimal damage. Now for all of Nick's smash attacks, he'd do the same thing, but in different directions. He'd point his finger and yell, "Take that!" with a speech bubble saying, "Take that!" appearing out of Nick's finger. In the Ace Attorney games, "Take that!" is what Nick yells whenever he presents an important piece of evidence to the court, which ends up proving something very crucial to the case at hand. The side smash would have Nick point straight forwards, the up smash would have Nick point straight upwards, and for the down smash, Nick points straight forwards again, but at the same time, Maya appears right behind him and does her own "Take that!" point in the opposite direction. But the two speech bubbles that appear for the down smash would be a bit smaller and have less range than the side and up smashes would. For Nick's neutral aerial, he would start trying to wrap his head around the situation at hand and kind of crunch up his body and wiggle, turning his whole body into a short-range hitbox that will be at its strongest at the beginning of the move and will have a lingering, weaker hitbox for the remainder of the move. This is his heavy air attack while in investigation mode in Marvel. His forward air will be his medium air attack while in investigation mode, which is a short-range attack having Nick pull out a piece of paper from low to high. The back air could be an innovated version of his heavy air attack while in trial mode, having Nick turn his body around and pull out a piece of paper while stretching his arm out, as if he were trying to shove the evidence in your face. This attack would come out quick and would be pretty strong, as most back airs are. His up air could have him pull out a piece of paper and present it straight up into the air, as if he were showing it to the judge himself, who sits high in the judge's bench. And his down air could be his special air attack in Marvel 3, which would have him sneeze straight down. Bless you. While this is based off the attack in Marvel, the attack itself references the beginning of Ace Attorney 3, which shows Nick with a cold and sneezing constantly. This attack would be able to spike foes if they get hit by it right at the beginning of the move. Ugh, I hope everyone got their flu shot. Vaccinate yourselves, and your kids while you're at it. If you don't, then pretty soon you may need a lawyer. So Nick would have a very unique type of grab, as he wouldn't technically be grabbing foes per se, but instead will be pressing them. Pressing in Ace Attorney is what you do to get more information out of witnesses while you're cross-examining them. And Nick always starts it off with a loud and hearty, "Hold it!" And that is what Nick will do to grab. He'll hold his hands forwards and yell, "Hold it!" with the hold it speech bubble appearing in front of his hands, and any opponent hit by that speech bubble will be grabbed, quote unquote. Once the foe is grabbed, they'll be stuck in that spot. After all, you can't exactly get away and leave the witness stand while you're being pressed during a testimony. Nick will then pull out a piece of paper and assume the pose that looks like his graphic of him holding the paper with his finger on it. For Nick's pummel, it would have him do the graphic where he taps the paper with his finger. That tap itself is the pummel, as if he's reading off the evidence to the witness that he's pressing, and slowly damaging their credibility even more each time he does. For the forward throw, Nick would forcefully point his finger at the foe and yell, "You're the true culprit!" causing the foe to fly forwards in a very exaggerated way. Not unlike what we see happen in Marvel 3 while Nick is in turnabout mode, but also paying homage to the Phoenix Wright anime as well. The back throw would have Maya randomly appear behind the foe and jump scare both them and Phoenix, causing the foe to fly backwards and leading Nick to just sigh and go, Maya. The up throw would have Maya run past Nick and into the foe, comedically sending them into the air. And for the down throw, it would bring down the wrath of the Judge. Made as a reference to Nick's backquarter super in Marvel 3, which in and of itself is a reference to the dream we see Nick have in Ace Attorney 2, a giant gavel would come out of nowhere and smash the foe, dealing big damage to them while also burying them into the ground. The Judge's orders are absolute, and whatever he says is generally grounded. Nick will just be watching in horror as all this goes down, by the way. For Phoenix Wright's neutral special, he would yell. But it wouldn't just be any yell, it would be his iconic yell. You all should know what yell I'm talking about. So go ahead, Nick, give it to them. One that's as hale and hearty as ever.
Objection!
No moveset of Phoenix Wright would be complete without one of his ever famous objections. He would point his finger forwards and yell it as such, with a long speech bubble appearing at the tip of his finger. Despite Nick being a lightweight with weaker quick attacks for the most part, this special would be a very powerful attack, capable of dealing big damage and knockback, but it would have a bit of start lag. But as such, during that start lag, Nick would have a lot of super armor if his attack is used on the ground. He's also able to turn this attack around if the control stick is held into the opposite direction Nick is facing during the startup. I made it like this for a very specific reason. Objections are supposed to be used as a means of interrupting an argument when you see something going wrong or notice a contradiction. So for Smash, if you find yourself getting pressured, or maybe you're just getting comboed all over the place, then raise an objection, armor through those attacks, and interrupt that combo. For the side special, this would be a move where Nick will get some major backup from Maya. So for those who've never played the Ace Attorney games, you've probably been curious about Maya as a whole, who she is, and what's up with that weird hippie outfit that she's wearing. Well, Maya Fey is not your ordinary assistant. She's actually a very gifted spirit medium. You heard me right, a spirit medium. As in, she has the ability to communicate with the dead. Well, more specifically, she has the ability to allow others to communicate with the dead. The Fey family have the innate ability to channel spirits so long as they know their name and face, and when they do so, they actually relinquish their body to that spirit. And when this happens, their body actually morphs into that person's original body before they died, effectively turning the medium into that person they're channeling. It's also hilarious since all that changes is the body, but the clothes and hairstyle don't change, so Maya will channel somebody and we'll just see that person wearing Maya's outfit. Now I mostly bring all of this up so I can give you all an idea of what Maya's abilities are as a medium, but she wouldn't actually be channeling anybody for the side special. Instead, she'd be using a mystical shield of spirits, the quarter circle light attack that Nick has while in investigation mode in Marvel 3. Maya would appear right in front of Nick and would use her connections to the dead to create a shield of wisps right in front of herself. In Marvel, all this shield did was nullify all damage and knockback from opponents against Nick if he stood underneath it. For Smash, this shield would nullify all damage and knockback from any attack, just like in Marvel, but it would also be able to reflect projectiles while Maya holds the shield out. Upon activation, Maya would come out right in front of Nick and would stay there with the shield out for 3 seconds. Nick would need to wait for Maya to finish and disappear before he can use it again, but the move can be cancelled if Nick chooses to use a different attack that includes Maya, like the down smash for example. Also something to keep in mind, this shield will only work if attacked from the front. It won't work if Maya is attacked from behind. But to even get behind Maya, foes will need to jump over her, as the shield does have some resistance on it, making it so that foes can't dodge roll past her. Now for the out special, which will also include Maya. As I said at the beginning, Maya is always there to pick Nick back up whenever he's down. She's like his personal cheerleader, and always knows how to cheer him back up. Well, for the out special, Maya will literally pick Nick up. And by pick him up, I mean comedically throw him high into the air. She would appear right behind Nick and throw him high vertically at a slight forwards angle. He wouldn't have a whole lot of control in terms of aiming where Nick goes, but his body would act as a kind of weak hitbox, so this is an attack. Of course, throughout all of this, Nick would be panicking. I mean, I probably would too if someone snuck up behind me and threw me like 20 feet into the air. With all of that said, there is something I should make mention about Maya. she would have her own individual health, and if there's a point where she takes too much accumulated damage over the fight, she would get knocked out, and all attacks involving her would be unavailable until she comes to, which would take about 8 seconds. Don't worry, Maya's tough. She's always quick to get back on her feet whenever she's knocked down. Still, it's best that you take care of her. I mean, not having access to your down smash, back throw, up throw, side special, and especially your up special for 8 seconds can mean all the difference in a fast-paced Smash match. Now moving on to the down special, don't worry folks, this one will be as simple as can be.
Objection!
Nah, of course things aren't going to be that simple. Phoenix Wright's down special is going to be an integral part to both his gimmick as well as his moveset as a whole. Phoenix Wright's down special is going to be evidence collection. So something I neglected to mention while I was explaining Nick's 3 modes in Marvel was that in order to properly progress through the modes, you need to find evidence. Having evidence gives Nick access to a projectile game, and you need 3 good pieces of evidence in order to enter Turnabout mode at all. Now for this moveset, things will be working differently when it comes to the importance of having evidence. As anyone with even the most remote knowledge of how court cases work could tell you, evidence is everything. Evidence are the key factors which could lead to either a guilty or a not guilty verdict. And as I'm sure any attorney would tell you, the more evidence you have on your side, the stronger your case is. And that's exactly how Nick's moveset will work. The more evidence he has, the stronger his moveset becomes. That said, there's actually a lot more to this down special than you might be expecting. When you use the down special, and so long as Nick isn't interrupted, he'll search the ground for any piece of evidence that could possibly strengthen his case. But he is not guaranteed to find evidence when he does this. In fact, he'd only have a 50% chance to find a good piece of evidence that he'd keep for his case. The other half of the time, he'd find junk, which he'd just throw away, causing your time to be wasted. Unlike Marvel, where he keeps everything he finds, even if it is just junk, and has to manually throw it away to get rid of it. Now, that may seem like a pain when it comes to collecting evidence. I mean, if it were that easy for all attorneys to get evidence, almost all court cases would probably be resolved perfectly in a matter of hours, which unfortunately is unrealistic, especially for your run-of-the-mill attorney. But that said, Phoenix Wright is anything but your run-of-the-mill attorney, and he does have a trick up his sleeve, one of which that has been crucial for Nick to pull evidence and information out of people who try to hide it from him. What I'm talking about is his Magatama, a mysterious spiritual trinket given to him by Maya. While Nick holds the Magatama, if anyone Nick talks to tries to hide something from him, mysterious locks will appear around the person called psych locks. These psych locks represent just how deep someone is hiding their secrets, and the more psych locks they have, the deeper their secret is being kept hidden. And it's up to Nick to unlock the psych locks one by one to force the recipient's secrets to light. So for the Smash moveset, the Magatama will be incorporated as a part of Nick's down special, as a counter. As soon as you activate the down special, there will be a few frames at the beginning which will act as counter frames. Not getting hit during the counter frames is what will lead to Nick to try to find evidence on his own, which, as I stated before, only has a 50% chance for success. But if he is hit during the counter frames, he'll use his Magatama on the opponent who hit him and break their psych lock. This deals a little bit of damage to opponents and will stun them for a bit. But not only that, getting a successful counter off will guarantee Nick a single piece of evidence. Now, why did I make this a counter? Well, because in the Ace Attorney games, using the Magatama actually does have a drawback. If you mess up and present the wrong information or evidence to the person whose locks you're trying to unlock, it actually does hurt Nick as a result, as a sort of punishment for missing the mark. So when translating that to Smash, if you miss the counter, you'll leave yourself vulnerable and more than likely get yourself hurt as your opponent punishes you for messing up with the Magatama. See what I did there? So now I'm sure you're all wondering what specifically the evidence does to make Nick's moveset even better. Well, for starters, each subsequent piece of evidence will power Nick's moveset up in increments, and Nick is only able to collect a maximum of 5 pieces of evidence. So that's when Nick's moveset will be at its strongest. But the evidence won't power up all of the moveset, only certain moves, specifically the moves that involve the speech bubbles. So his smash attacks, his grab, and his neutral special. But it will also affect the down special as well. For the smash attacks, having evidence increases the power and knockback of the attacks, and will increase the size of the speech bubble, making it easier to hit opponents. Having evidence also increases the size of the speech bubble for the hold it grab, making it easier to grab opponents. It also reduces the amount of end lag for the grab. His objection neutral special though is what really gets a power buff when you have more evidence. It increases his super armor and greatly increases the power and knockback of the speech bubble, capable of KOing really early if Nick has all 5 pieces of evidence. And for his down special, each piece of evidence he has will reduce the amount of time Nick will spend trying to find new evidence when he has to collect it himself, reducing its vulnerability. And when he has 5 pieces of evidence, he won't even bother looking anymore. It will just become a counter with very little end lag. It also increases in power and lengthens the amount of time it'll stun opponents. So Nick sounds pretty strong with 5 pieces of evidence, doesn't he? Well, he should be. As I made clear, any attorney has a strong case with enough good evidence. But that said, even the strongest of evidence can be shot down by any opposing attorney if they have a good enough case. So every time Nick is KO'd, he'll lose 3 pieces of evidence and will be forced to find more. And that pretty much does it for the core mechanics of Phoenix Wright's moveset. So, if no one has any issues, then let's move right along to the— OBJECTION! What was that? Could you make the fanfare a little quieter, please? So yeah, Apollo Justice, Nick's apprentice with cords of steel. Okay. The ringing stopped, so I think I'm good. Anyways, since Phoenix did mentor Apollo and taught him all of his techniques, it only makes sense that Apollo would be Nick's Echo Fighter. In terms of major differences, there would be 2 major ones. First off, Apollo doesn't have a Magatama, so he can't see Cyclops, but he does have his own skills, and that involves 3 things: his 2 eyes and his bracelet. On top of having strong lungs, Apollo has a keen sense of sight and is able to see even the smallest details on a person, including their nervous fidgets, which normally is how Apollo is able to tell when someone's lying. But he's only first alerted to these lies thanks to his bracelet, which was passed down to him by the mother that he never knew. The bracelet has this weird ability to react and tighten when someone close by is lying. So when Apollo feels his bracelet tighten, he knows someone is lying. So he'll be using his bracelet for his down special. The other major difference will be his assistant. He would not have Maya with him, obviously, as they never even met until the 6th game, and I can assure you that Apollo isn't anywhere near as close to Maya as Nick is. But there is someone who has been his co-counsel and very close friend since the near beginning of Apollo's career, and that would be his half-sister and Phoenix Wright's adopted daughter, Trucy Wright. And yes, Apollo and Trucy are half-siblings, but they don't know it yet. Nick knows. He even knows who their mother is, but they're certainly taking their time to break the news. Whatever, I'm getting off track. Phoenix adopted Trucy when she was 8 years old after her father disappeared. Literally, he magicked his way out of the courtroom when Nick failed to prove his innocence. But to be fair, Nick was sabotaged, and it did lead to him losing his attorney's badge for a while, but he does get it back eventually, so don't worry. Getting back on track, again, Trucy is not a spirit medium or anything of the like, no. What she is, though, is a very accomplished magician, as she was born from a world-famous magician's troupe before Nick took her in. So when helping Apollo, instead of spiritual powers like Maya, she'd be using magic tricks. Her role for the down smash, back throw, and up throw wouldn't change, she'd just do them in her own little Trucy way. What would majorly change would be what she does for the side special and up special. For the side special, instead of a spiritual shield, she'd use her magic panties. Yeah, please don't ask too many questions. Trucy has a pair of panties that she uses for her magic acts, which she claims have their own pocket dimension, where she can put anything into them and they'll disappear, and she can pull anything out of them out of nowhere. Much like a magic top hat, but with panties. Using the panties for the side special will nullify damage just like Maya's shield does, but unlike Maya's shield, it will not reflect projectiles. Instead, she'd take a note from the villager and will pocket any projectile that enters her panties. When she does, she'll keep that projectile, and the next time she comes out, she'll automatically throw it back, making them disappear and then reappear like a true magician. As for the up special, instead of simply throwing Apollo into the air, she'd use some real smoke and mirrors and make him teleport. She would make him disappear into a puff of smoke, and he would reappear higher into the air. This move will not have a hitbox like Nyx does, so it's not an attack, but it does go a little higher than Nyx, so it's better for recovery. Both Phoenix and Apollo would have the same final smashes, just with a different coat of paint. And yes, you heard me right, I said final smashes. They'd both have 2 final smashes, and the smash used would depend on whether or not they have 5 pieces of evidence. If they don't have 5 pieces of evidence, they'd both do a cinematic final smash where they catch the foe with an objection, then use their personal powers on the foe. So Nick would use the Magatama and Apollo would use his bracelet. They would catch the foe in a contradiction and then deal a decent amount of damage and knockback to them. This final smash wouldn't be very strong, but what it does do is give the attorney a full inventory of evidence, thus maximizing the power of their moveset. If they do have 5 pieces of evidence when they use their final smash, instead they do a separate cinematic final smash that starts with another big objection. They can only catch 1 foe in this smash, and if they do, it shows the lawyer thinking through their evidence just like they do in the modern Ace Attorney games, and after putting everything together, accuse the foe and get them indicted, leading to an automatic KO, regardless of damage. After all, if you get indicted in a court of law, it may as well be game over. In terms of colors, Phoenix and Maya would have 2 alternate appearances, one showing them in their classic younger look, and the other having them in their modern older appearance. For the alternate colors, the first for the younger costume can give Nick a dull green suit and Maya a hot pink and blue outfit, in reference to Detective Dick Gumshoe and Kay Faraday. The first alt for the older costume could have Nick in a maroon suit and give Maya a black and white outfit, in reference to Nick's rival and friend, Miles Edgeworth, and Edgeworth's adopted sister, Franziska von Karma. The next color for the younger look could give Nick an orange suit and Maya a lighter purple outfit, in reference to Nick's childhood friend, Larry Butts. Yes, that's his name. And Maya's younger cousin, Pearl Fay. The next for the older costume can give Nick a green and beige suit and a black outfit for Maya, in reference to the prosecutor Godot and Maya's late older sister, as well as Nick's mentor, Mia Fay. The last alt for the younger costume could be another alternate costume, having Nick in his pink heart sweater and scarf, which he wore while he was in college, given to him by an ex-girlfriend. And Maya would just be given an orange outfit, in reference to the Trace Beyond waitress outfit. Sorry if I butchered that. And finally, the older version could also have an alternate costume, showing Nick in his old hobo outfit, which is what he wore after losing his attorney's badge. Maya would be shown in a silver and red outfit, in reference to the Steel Samurai, Maya's favorite show. Now for Apollo and Trucy's default outfit, it would have Apollo in his red suit and Trucy in her blue and black magician's garb. Their first alternate colors could have Apollo in a maroon suit and black pants, and Trucy in a green and white outfit, in reference to the rock and roll prosecutor Clavier Gavin and the forensics detective Emma Skye. The second can have Apollo in a black suit and Trucy in a dull pink garb, in reference to Apollo's school days outfit and Trucy's original garb that she wore when she was 8 years old. But that could also be in reference to the outfit worn by her father, Zach Ramere. The third alt could have Apollo in a dull blue suit and Trucy in a yellow garb, in reference to Christoph Gavin and Valiant Gramere, both who are people that made Apollo and Trucy's lives a little harder thanks to their crimes. I say little, but they were actually really major. The next could have Apollo in a yellow suit and Trucy in a half-green, half-purple garb, in reference to Athena Sykes and Mr. Reese. Again, sorry if I'm butchering these names. The fifth can give Apollo a white suit and Trucy a white and pink garb, in reference to Prosecutor Nayuda and Princess Rafa. The next could be an alternative costume, where Apollo would wear bandages and the coat of his late best friend, Clay Tarrant, an outfit that he wore during a rather difficult time for him after the death of his friend Clay. Trucy would wear a darker blue outfit, in reference to Clay. And finally, as an alternate color for the bandaged costume, it could give him a blue suit and the coat and bandages would be black, and Trucy would be wearing a black garb. These are in reference to Dirk Sanmati and Magnifi Gramere, both who are large inspirations and very important members of the family for both Apollo and Trucy respectively. For their stage intros, both Nick and Apollo would be walking up normally to the stage, reading the court record while their respective assistants follow. Both lawyers would then hand said assistants the record and say, "The defense is ready, Your Honor," while their assistants run off. For taunts, Nick's first would have him start sweating and ask, "Could this get any worse?" in reference to Nick's jokingly nihilistic look on things. His second could have him put his finger to his chin to ponder while asking,
"Sure you're not forgetting something?"
which is a direct reference to his trial mode taunt in Marvel 3. And the final could have Maya appear, Except it wouldn't be Maya. It'd be his old mentor, Mia, being channeled by Maya. And Nick would look determined while Mia says, "Think outside the box, Wright?" For Apollo's taunts, the first would have Apollo put his finger to his head to ponder and say, "That's a contradiction, isn't it?" For his second, he would clench his fists and yell,
Apollo Justice is doing fine!
"Ah!" And the final taunt would have Trucy's puppet, Mr. Hat, appear and freak Apollo out. Then Trucy will chuckle while Apollo just sighs. And finally, for the victory animations, Nick's first will be the final direct reference to Marvel 3 that I'll be using for this video. You would see the words, "Not guilty," flash on the screen, and Nick would be rubbing the back of his head embarrassed while saying, "Wow, I didn't think we'd pull that one off." Meanwhile, Maya would be behind him throwing confetti into the air, which in fact does make reference to when you get not guilty verdicts in the Ace Attorney games. The second could have Nick and Maya standing triumphantly, and Nick would say, "The worst of times is when you have to force your biggest smiles." Advice given to him by his mentor Mia. Advice of which that he holds very close to his heart to this very day. And the final would have Maya jump up and down excitedly and say, "We did it, Nick! Now let's go celebrate with some burgers!" And Nick would just sigh and say, "But you just ate!" In reference to how when a court case is won, Maya always wants to go out and celebrate, usually on poor Nick's dime. And for Apollo's victory animations, his first would be an equivalent to Nick's first. Not guilty would be plastered on the screen, and Apollo would just scratch his head embarrassed and say, "I hope there's no hard feelings." And Trucy would be in the background throwing confetti from her magic panties. The second, also an equivalent to Nick's second, would have Apollo and Trucy both stand triumphantly, and Apollo would say, "Justice never rests, not until the truth comes to light." And for the final victory animation, it would start with just Trucy by herself holding a sword, and she would make a giant chained box appear out of nowhere, and Apollo would stick his head out of a hole at the top in absolute terror. In reference to how Trucy loves to make poor Apollo her guinea pig for new magic tricks. And that does it for the Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright, and Apollo Justice as his Echo Fighter. Definitely another example of a potential Smash fighter that would certainly be unconventional. But then again, I've said it time and time again, Smash is not a conventional fighting game. And after all, these two lawyers probably fight way harder than most of the characters on the Smash roster, just in their own way. In any which case, if you liked what you saw and would like to see even more characters be given possible Smash movesets, be sure to subscribe. And if you have a character that you would like to see be given a possible Smash moveset, leave a comment down below. Or contact me on Twitter at BrawlFrame1 on Twit. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching!